Hello, quickly. So, East had a very weak opening bid, but reasonable opening bid. It's weak because there are no aces. That's always a minus. The king queen short in hearts is also bad news. The hand would be much better if one of those little clubs were a heart. Sometimes this kind of holding can block a suit. Okay, but those are the minuses. The pluses are you have spades. That's also very important consideration. Your spades are very suitable. You would like a spade lead, for instance, if the opponents win the contract. And so one spade is fairly normal. And then after forcing, I don't know if they played forcing, I don't know their system. But most people play forcing or at least semi-forcing one of Trump. So West judged correctly that he had not enough strength to do anything other than one of Trump, and East passed, showing that he had a very minimum opening bid. And so far, this was really well judged. And then South decided to reopen, which is, I don't know if that is a sensible decision. I know that there is some inclination to never let the auction die low. And in the abstract, that's not a bad inclination. But let's look at South's cards to focus on what can happen, what can go wrong. You don't have lots of high card strength and your partner is passed. In other words, there's no risk that you're missing a game here. That's one consideration. The second consideration is most of your power, most of your honors, most of your strength is in spades. And spades are breaking badly. You know that. And so you don't have a lot of hope. Of course, you can always pick up, let's say, partner with 5 hearts. And then it is great to reopen that. But that's against the odds, basically. The chance that you will find partner with a perfect hand for you, which meaning his longest suit being your longest side suit, is not the most likely scenario. So I really think that South should pass one of Trump's. I know that it's against the grain, and perhaps some people would say, well, you should never let people play in one of Trump with a hand of that strength. But frankly, I think that the stronger your partner is, the more tricks you'll make in one of Trump. That's one thing to consider. And the second thing to consider is that when you are defending against one of Trump, you are basically contracting to make 7 tricks in no Trumps, because if you make 6, they win a contract. So if you make 7 or more tricks, then you are scoring on your column, on the good side of the scorecard. There is only one consideration that would give me second thoughts about passing here, which is the vulnerability. And that's an important, very important thing to keep in mind in this kind of situation, especially in a match point tournament, which is the case. If East-West were vulnerable, this would be a very clear pass. Very clear. Because if you make any part score, then you're probably defeating one of Trump's. And 100 is good against 90, for instance, if you make 2 clubs or 2 diamonds. And if you can make like something at the 3 level, it's very likely that you will get 200 against one of Trump's. And so reopening, if they are vulnerable, I think it's quite inferior. Since they are not vulnerable, and you are not vulnerable also, this is the most enticing combination for trying to reopen. because if you go down, you go down in 50s. So perhaps you can go down one in your contract and they would make 90. Now they will score 50. And in match point tournaments, that is a very big consideration. That's one of the aspects that makes them so challenging. And so the vulnerability would give me pause here. I really hate to let the opponents play 1-0 trump, get first to 1-0 trump, let's say, when nobody's vulnerable. But this is basically the only reason why one should consider reopening here. The concentration in spades, consider if your major suits were switched, then the double would be very clear, because it's when you have 4 little spades in such a situation, you can pretty much expect that they'll make 4 at least, and probably 5 spade tricks in no trump. And they perhaps won't have to lose the lead to do that. So they may have 7 or 8 quick tricks while you can make something. In hearts, for instance, they imagine they can have 5 running spades, a heart stopper, that's 6, and 1 ace, 7. Okay, and you could make lots of hearts if the majors were switched in that scenario. But since you have weak hearts, very good spades, a balanced hand, not enough high card power to expect any relevant possibility of losing a game, all of these advocate against reopening. But the vulnerability is a very strong point for reopening. All that said, South reopened. And now West had a very easy 2-heart bid, and North had probably they don't have any sophisticated agreements for this situation, and he had to pick a suit to compete. He wanted to compete, especially once West took out 2 hearts. If partner is doubling 1-0 trump and he has 5-5 in the minors, and by the way, he might have bid something over 1-0 trump since he was a passed hand, right? He passed 1 spade, passed 1-0 trump. He might have bid 2 clubs, for instance, and it wouldn't be way out of line since the clubs are sturdy, and just because he has a hand that is unexpectedly good in distribution and in trick taking power against 1-0 trump. But pass is fine too. In any case, over 2 hearts, he didn't have any action that could offer his partner a choice of the minors. Because if he had that action, for instance, if 2-0 trumps by North were agreed upon as that, which it should be, by the way, as a general rule, I know that this is perhaps a bit too sophisticated for many partnerships watching this video, but as a general rule in competitive auctions, 2-0 trumps is more useful as an action that enhances your flexibility rather than as a proposal to make so many tricks in no trump, as a strained proposal. So you should try, your partnership should discuss specific cases, of course, but you should try to use 2-0 trumps in a competitive auction as a scramble, meaning pick a suit. I don't want to double them, because it's either penalty or it's not a suitable hand, because perhaps it's too distributional. So I don't want, even if it's takeout, I don't want to give you the chance of passing it because my hand is too distributional. So pick a suit. And that's the most useful meaning for 2-0 trump in the vast majority of competitive auctions. But North didn't have that tool, and he picked his best suit. And now this was probably the most surprising action in the entire auction so far. The decision from East with a sub-minimum hand, without a very clear, strong, sturdy diamond suit, to come back in at the 3 level. Partner could have been weaker and could have had less hearts because he was taking out from 1-0 trump doubled. That was his best chance of bidding hearts. So he could have like ace jack fifth. There's no reason for him to have 6. So that was a very risky gamble by East, which paid off because, well, West knew that if he passed over 1-0 trumps, then he didn't have diamonds good enough to play opposite to Singleton, and he could rebid hearts comfortably. And so they reached a sensible contract. That said, they should have been defeated, right? Because there is the ace king of spades, the ace of diamonds, and 2 clubs to lose. And they made 10 tricks. So even though the auction was exciting, the real action in this board was in the defense. Certainly the defense made some mistakes. I would suppose that they started with the ace of clubs. The best shot for North, I haven't looked at their lead yet. For them to yield 10 tricks to the opponents, I would guess ace of clubs was the lead, which is very bad for them. But I would be thinking, as North, let's hide the cards to emphasize this. I would be thinking of leading either. I would never lead a club, by the way. First thing. There's no rush for us to lead a club. Partner has reopened 1-0 trump. So he has something like, let's say, at a minimum, 10 high card points. And I have 9. So the strength is divided. There's no rush for us to... It's not what we call a cash-out situation. There's no real risk that Declara, if I don't lead clubs, that he will be able to draw trumps and run a suit, presumably spades, and then discard club losers without losing any trick in this process, because that would leave partner with a very weak hand. And they would be in the wrong contract. They should be playing a game in this case. So we should expect that partner will have a stopper, either in spades or in hearts, and so there's no rush for us to lead clubs. Leading a diamond is probably the safest. It's a very safe position, especially when East beats diamonds on your left. Meaning it's very unlucky for your diamond lead to run, for instance, towards Declara's ace jack or king jack when East beat diamonds. So diamonds would be my lead. My second choice, there's no good second choice, but if I were forbidden from leading a diamond, I would lead a spade. Let's see what North led. As expected, the ace of clubs, which is, by the reasons already presented, a bad lead. The 10 of clubs was a little... will probably help Declara to establish 9 and 8, but it's the systemic card, I suppose. It's when you have... They are probably playing high encouraging and high even, and so with an even card. And if they lead ace from ace king, there's no reason why South would not encourage clubs to perhaps force dummy to ruff a club with a heart honor and then establish his own 10 of hearts. And there it is. So now Declara has 9-8 of clubs to drive out the jack. But even so, if you count Declara's tricks, he has only 6 hearts and 2 clubs, that's 8. We're still far away from 10. So he led the diamond to the jack. So he got this right, which is fairly normal considering the bidding. North already showed up with ace and queen of clubs. So West is really expecting South to have the majority of strength after this start. And South ducked. And that was... I can't see any upside for this deck. But that aside... It's a good habit, and people should try to develop it, of signaling count honestly in, let's say, in ordinary situations. So when North sees a diamond, regardless of the size of the diamond, a diamond coming from West, he should be signaling his diamond count. So if, I suppose, the partnership plays high encourages, so they usually should play high, even, low, odd. So South should have played the 5. And if he had played, and if, assuming they play all that, if he had played the 5, then that could be very clear. South should think like this. If I have 3 and then he has 4, when declarer has a singleton, partner has a 5. And therefore he has an odd number of diamonds. So any card that is consistent with an odd number of diamonds should be let's say, a second argument for not ducking, because you may be losing your ace. That signaling comment aside, I don't see any upside for ducking with South's hand. What South should be thinking about in the defense is something like this. Declarer has 5 or 6 hearts from the bidding. And as for clubs, partner passed over one and over in first in hand, passed over 1 of trumps, then competed to 3 clubs. So that rules out 4 clubs only, because he should not be bidding 3 clubs with 4 clubs only. Not rules out. Rules out is a bit of an overstatement. But that makes it very unlikely that North will have 4 clubs. It's the most likely situation is 5 clubs. It's possible, but really it depends on the style of North, but really unlikely that he'll have 6, because he might have bid over 1 of trump with 6 good clubs, and practically impossible that he'll have 7. So we should always try to recreate the opposing hands, and our first approximation should always be what looks more likely. And as explained, the most likely position is North with 5, and therefore West with 4. So we already expect West to have 5 or 6 hearts and 4 clubs, and no more than 2 spades, because if he had 3 spades, he would have raised spades at some point, and therefore his hands could be something like this. Let's see all the possibilities. 2 spades, 5 hearts, 4 clubs, and therefore 2 diamonds. That's one. 1 spade, 5 hearts, 4 clubs, and therefore 3 diamonds. That's another. That's the one that gives West the maximum amount of diamonds. But why should we duck? I'm talking a lot about this because this is a very important habit to develop. This visualization of the opposing hands. And it's very easy for me to just gloss over how every player should be thinking. But I think that the point of this video and subsequent videos will be to emphasize, to underline the mental process that leads a player to duck when a trick should be ducked, or to win a trick when it should be won. And so this duck from South in this situation, after the Jack was played from East, you can't use a brute force method of imagining all the situations that are possible in diamonds and seeing that there is none in which the duck is necessary. Or you could use a shortcut. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate. The shortcut is, if West has a diamond, this duck is a bad idea. And it's very likely that, very possible, I wouldn't say very likely, but it's very possible that West has a diamond. Okay, even before you see partner's card. Only if you are very trusting, if your partner is very reliable, and if you are sure that he's signaling correctly, and you know that he has shown an even number of diamonds, then you can rule out the possibility of a singleton in West. But if you don't have that kind of partner, you should be protecting your side against this all the time. So the Jack of Diamonds won the trick. Let's get back to watching the full board. King of Hearts. He still is about to lose. He lost one trick already. 2 spades and a club, right? And then King of Diamonds. Let's see. There was probably some mishap in discarding after this. I think I see what will happen. West will play a spade and South will play a diamond before he plays the second spade. See, yes. Okay, but that's a very important trick here when North discards a spade from South's viewpoint. What should South be thinking? Let's get back to the entire situation here. After ducking the Jack of Diamonds, South should be watching, of course, every card played. And at this point, now South knows West has 6 hearts because partner has only 1. So he can count to 13. 6 hearts, 4 clubs, as expected. 1 diamond we saw already, and at most 2 spades, from the bidding and from bridge logic. So a diamond ruffed, very almost sure to be 2 spades only. His hand is almost perfectly counted. Might have been 5 clubs and 6 hearts and 1 spade and 1 diamond. This is still possible. But this would place partner with only 4 clubs and a very weird lead. So you should be pretty confident that West has 2 spades, 6 hearts, 1 diamond, and 4 clubs at this point. And that after, watch the discards. A diamond and a spade. Now, when West plays a spade, you know there's only 1 spade missing after you win this king. There's only 1 spade missing. And so you know that if you cash the ace and West ruffs mysteriously, if all your considerations are wrong and West ruffs, East is completely without entries. And partner, you are completely without entries also. So it will become a battle between North and West. You are off from the field, but you know that you haven't lost anything by cashing the ace of spades in that weird scenario. But if West still has a spade, you should be careful not to let him throw you in with a spade at the end. So you should take this spade out. Play the ace of spades before leading the diamond. When she did this, now she should have ducked because there are no trumps out at this point. If she was watching, counting, she should have ducked the Jack of spades, played the 3, and then the ace of 9 will make the last 2 tricks. But she was not counting, and so she lost the last 2 spades, and this was actually a very great result for East-West. Well, this board took a long time. 25 minutes in a board. I certainly won't record 9 boards in this video. I'll try to get 1 more. Okay. 1 trump by South, maximum but normal. 2 spades by West, natural and very heavy. North should be willing to risk. This depends on systemic considerations, but most people play some kind of the Lebenssoll convention. I wouldn't say most people, but many people play that. And in that case, you can bid, arrange the auction so as to reach 3 clubs by bidding to no trumps, which asks partner to bid 3 clubs, and then you pass. And that is sensible option. It's certainly the best bridge action from North over to spades, because you have a singleton spade, you have 6 clubs, and you are fairly confident that you can make 3 clubs. And even if you can't, you won't go down 2. Very unlikely that you'll go down 2, opposite to strong no trump. And so you are trying to get 110 or losing perhaps 100, and this makes sense for you. But once North didn't do that, everybody had bid out, and so they reached 2 spades. The bid of 2 spades from West was, I would say, inspired, neither very good nor very bad, because against a vulnerable no trump, you might think about defending against no trump and hoping to make a lot of spade tricks. But that's more of a gamble. And so 2 spades has the upside that sometimes you catch partner with a good enough hand that you can even beat a game. But this vulnerability is really, they vulnerable, us not vulnerable, is really pointing towards defending, not towards declaring. So that's why I think it was inspired. So he's playing 2 spades after the club lead. The 10 of clubs is a bit of it's a small mistake. The 7 would have been a better play for some reasons. And now South switched to a 7 of spades. This would, if Declarer had any kind of entry to the dummy, this might have helped him to guess the spades. But there's no entry, and so Declarer will certainly have to catch spades from the top. And he's about to make only 6 spades against best defense. So going down 2. That's not what happened, I think. Okay, South played a second spade. That was fairly risky because it's giving an entry to Declarer, and not advised, because what South should be doing after, to be corrected right after dummy went down, is to estimate the relative strengths of North and West. So let's get back to emphasize this. She has 17 high card points. There's another activity that the player should do as a matter of habit in any scenario. She has 17 and dummy went down with a very weak hand. Only 3 high card points. So there's 20 high card points divided between those people, North and West. And so she knows there's an upper limit on North's of around, let's say, 8 or 9. With more than that, North would not let it go in 2 spades. With 9 high card points, he would be trying for game. So some bad 8 is the limit of North's. So the minimum for West is therefore 12. West cannot have less than 12 high card points, because that will leave North with more than 9 or more. And what is the lower limit? Well, West cannot beat 2 spades with a very, very, very strong hand either, because he might be missing a game or missing a penalty, even undoubled against no trump. So, as a matter of practical experience, what South should be thinking about is, let's say, 12 to 14 high card points in West. With more than that, West would be tempted to bid more strongly. So that leaves North with 6 to 8. That's some interesting cards there, don't you think? And so she should be thinking like this. 5 of clubs, 10 jack, won the trick. That's queen. 1 queen in North. 7 spades, king. Jack. North has shown up another high card point, the Jack of spades. And now there's no room for anything else in spades or in clubs. So you know that North has from 3 to 4, perhaps 5 high card points in hearts and diamonds. Queen of Hearts. That's a very strange card if West is lacking the Jack. So you should, first of all, look at the count from North. This should be count to decide whether you would perhaps give North a ruff in hearts or not. And assuming it's an honest count and therefore the lowest heart and therefore West has only Queen Jack tight of hearts, now you know that North has the King or the Ace of diamonds. And so your proper shift here is a diamond. So this sounds like a lot of work, but it's a habit that becomes very, very much easier the longer you keep it. So 9 of spades, West didn't finesse. He should have finessed, by the way. Should have finessed, but didn't. And now South should cash the Queen of spades and then switch to a diamond. Yes, there it is. And now the defense should just win 2 diamonds. And there they are. 6 tricks claimed, down 2. So they run some risks, especially at the spade switch that West could have finessed in spades. And some unnecessary risks, but it all ended well for North-South. And probably for East-West also, because they were playing a very nice contract and went down only 100 when their opponents could win a better score in clubs. In clubs, you see that they lose 1 spade, 1 club, and 1 heart at most. So they make 130 in clubs at most, at least.